we are here to explore how do we relate to the spiritual challenges of our time. And so when I had thought of this conversation, I thought that there's so much going on in the world right now. We have we have issues like climate change. We have issues like a presidential race that is very full of a lot of animosity. And I think a lot of us are kind of struggling how to make sense of the world in this moment. We have a president that seems to like to use Twitter quite a bit, and also seems to like to encourage, how do I say this? He has a lot of expressive tendencies, and those expressive tendencies don't always bring people together. And I think a lot of people are looking at like, how do I make sense of this world, and how do I find what right action looks like in this world today? And in a way that's not divisive and that doesn't include the division that we often see about like, oh, us and them, and if we only get them to change, everything will be good. So I thought we would start by just opening this conversation with both of you, because we all here have so much respect for you. And I think we're all looking for elders and teachers to kind of point us in a direction, in the right direction in these times, to not necessarily make sense of them, but just to know how best to engage. So maybe Katie, I'll start with you. How do you see these times? Or do you see these times as all perfect and everything's just going hunky-dory and we don't have to worry about everything? Or do you feel like, whoa, no, something we need to do? How do you relate to these times?
You know, it's the world as I personally understand it to be is what my world is in my world. Mm-hmm. So for me to understand the world, I need to identify what I'm thinking and believing about the world and question that. Mm-hmm. And then the world begins to make sense. Okay. Now, let's say that Donald Trump says something that's just outrageous, for example. You bring up
really?
His name.
It might happen.
Like there's something the matter with him.
Yeah.
Out of this questioning mind, you know, I would have to, you know, I feel that. There's something wrong with him. You feel that. You see it. There's an expression with it. Mm-hmm. And that wakes me up to, chances are, there's something wrong with me. What is wrong with me in that moment? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, then I can just get still, you know, meditatively, and identify, look at what I'm thinking and believing that would lead me to believe anything that keeps me from being present. Because when I'm present and I'm looking to myself, that's how to run my life. That's how to run my life as a good listener, as someone that is connected and understands. And I find a lot of peace in this, you two, since you ask. It's like, if I believed, and again, we're using Donald Trump. If I believed what he believed, I would say and do the same thing. Yes. In my world, no one is guilty other than what I'm thinking and believing them. It's just that they have a different belief system than I may happen to have. Right. And so any alarm I experience brings me back to the self, self. And again, so that I can stay connected, listen. And in that, wisdom is a given. It's a given. Yeah. And also, it leaves us with that curious mind that is just alive.
That's beautiful.
In the world itself.
How do you relate to things like, in that understanding, how do you relate to things like climate change, where people are like, it's just a story you're telling us. Actually, everything is fine. You're just creating a story that there's something wrong. We don't need to do anything. We can keep living as usual. Do you feel like there's certain things that then you feel like, no, the data presents this, we need to take an action, or how do you see that?
Oh, I love science. I love science. You know, I am my own test tube. It's going on all the time. And how does my climate change? You know, what am I thinking and believing would raise my temperature. Right. So, you know, let me work with this environment first.
Got it. Yeah.
This one first, and out of that wisdom, that lack of worry, and before and after, what can I do right here, right now, to make a change? Because that's where we're at our best.
Yeah.
And so it's not that freedom leaves us as drooling and out of touch. It's the extreme opposite. Enlightenment, it's exciting, and it's even though I don't move, it appears I'm moving. So I love my head because my apparent past is a beautiful thing. My apparent future is a beautiful thing, and that's being in action and living out of this true nature.
Right.
That there's no mystery.
Got it. Yeah.
I mean, we all know what to do. We all know what's kind. We all know what's right. What am I thinking and believing that would bring exception to that law? Would bring apparent exception to it. Well, that's what inquiry's for. An unquestioned mind is a dangerous thing. It appears to the believer.
Right, and if we all lived outside of those tendencies, we would naturally respond to whatever shows up in a kind way and in a generous way.
Oh my goodness! Yes. One thing, it's like my doctor. I'm not there. After it's not wise that I'm there. I had it confirmed. Okay, so I'd like to be at Wisdom 2.0. I haven't missed this in 5 years? And so I'm there. But it doesn't I don't know, I feel like I'm talking a lot. Jack.
So I'm hearing this inquiry before action, right?
Inquiry before action.
Well, a lot of times action comes first, and it's like, oops.
Right.
What was I thinking? Maybe I could use a little work.
Yes.
Katie.
Jack, do you want to jump in? It's the first time we've done this video stream, but Jack, are you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Yes, there you are.
First of all, how are you feeling?
I'm a little bit sick. It's true. I could have come like this. It's better to stay home and not be coughing on everybody. Anyway, hi. I'm very happy to be back at Wisdom 2.0. And I'm listening to your questions, and they're really the questions for our time. And listening to the beautiful things that Katie's saying, because the question, as you pose it, how do we make sense of the world, really is how do we make sense of ourselves, which is what Katie's pointing to. And in Zen, they say that there are only two things. You sit and you sweep the garden. And it doesn't matter how big the garden is. That is that you quiet the mind and open the heart, or inquire, as you would say, Katie, to look into who we really are. And then after you've quieted and tended and open yourself, then you get up and you tend the garden of the world. You sweep the garden of the world. And it doesn't matter how big it is. And we get this notion somehow that inner and outer are different, but it's like breathing in and out. You can't just have an in-breath or just an out-breath. And mindfulness itself is a compound word, sati sampajanya, that means first mindful presence, that we actually are present and we turn toward what's true, which right now also includes a lot of suffering. That's also true. Mindful presence and then mindful response. And Thich Nhat Hanh describes this so beautifully when he says, if the refugee boats coming from Vietnam encountered storms and pirates, if everyone on the boat panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat stayed center and calm, it was enough. It showed the way for everyone to survive. So we are in stormy seas, and whether it's climate change or refugees that are partly out of that, or the divisiveness of the politics and so forth, one of the most powerful things we can do, which Katie is talking about, is actually take the time to quiet ourselves so that we don't contribute to the fear that's there. Because the collective anxiety and fear is actually what's fueling the difficulty. And the truth is that no amount of outer technology and development, nanotechnology and biotechnology and space technology and computers and all that is going to stop our continuing conflict and racism and fear. That's all based on the human heart. And so if we can start to tend our own mind and heart, then the rest will follow. We are, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said in the past, a nation of nuclear giants and ethical infants. And so it's time for us as humanity to match these remarkable outer developments with an inner development of heart. And therefore, I see these times as really being the perfect time to do our spiritual work or to embody who we actually are. And I had this conversation with a whole group of people in China a couple of nights ago, those who are quarantined under, the coronavirus quarantines and so forth. And we talked about using it in a very different way, not just being depressed or frightened. I said, we have a big crowd of people at Spirit Rock who paid, in some cases, a few $1,000 to be stuck in their room without going out, and you get it for free. So Katie's phrase is the coronavirus and all this happening to you, or is it happening for you? Is there some way to actually turn toward what's difficult and as a bodhisattva say, this is what I've been training for. This is who I really am. And now that things are difficult is the time for me to bring my heart and dignity and be especially respectful of others of all different kinds. This is the time for it. And that becomes our work. And it changes us and it changes the world.
Yes.
So, Jack, you also said you had some questions you wanted us to explore. Did you want to bring one of those up now, or shall we continue? You had a question for Katie.
Let's continue for a bit.
Let's continue. So, Katie, do you have any thoughts after hearing Jack? And we're also just navigating this new technology thing, so I can't quite see you both at the same time. So, just jump in any time.
Well, yeah, I have some thoughts. I'd really like to spend the rest of the time listening to Jack. Such wisdom and so right. And, the Thich Nhat Hanh story of the ship and everything. Michelle, I was thinking of you at the table. It just makes the whole thing right when we're awake and present.
Yeah, and not creating a problem where it doesn't exist.
Yes, and not adding to it, reinforcing it with our own actions, no matter what we've been taught about parenting, etc. I had, I don't know if I'm going to move to that or not. I was still with Michelle at the table.
Well, I think there's definitely stories that I've had where, like, our leaders should be ethical. Is that true? Our leaders should act in a certain way. Is that true? Our leaders don't always follow the same guidelines that I think they should follow.
I see leaders as, let's say they're leading, and is it my way or their way? And if I don't approve, am I going to just shut them down and believe something onto them like that would separate me or lead me away from listening closely to what they're thinking and believing? Because my ego would just cut that off, that I know mind. Whereas if I listened, it educates me to how others are thinking, and it doesn't have to match what I'm thinking and believing.
Right.
But for me not to listen is for me to shut down my own process. I need to be open. If I'm going to do my work here in the world, I need to be open.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing way of, like, it's like living inside a conflict resolution, in the resolution. And as opposed to causing a revolution, love is the power, and connected, because that's where wisdom is.
Right.
If I attack you, I'm coming from a place of ignorance, meaning an unenlightened mind.
Right. And that's the work to start with.
It is. I'm not here to oppose anyone or anything. I'm here to be enlightened to it, so that I can live as a free being.
Right.
Freedom is our birthright, and
I think I've read something of yours where you said the world isn't here to make you happy; it's here to wake you up.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. What is it that would cost me my joy? One thing, what I'm thinking and believing about, again, about you, about the world, about myself, that I haven't questioned, that is the cost of, so I look to myself.
Great. Jack, how do you?
So I want to follow from what Katie is saying. There's a passage from this great activist, Molly Ivins, who I admired a lot, where she says, "So beloveds, keep fighting for freedom and justice, but don't forget to have fun doing it." And I was in the airport at a demonstration with my daughter, who's a asylum and immigration lawyer, for one of those big demonstrations. And people were shouting, and they had their, signs and things like that. And then at our gate, where we were, where there were about 400 people all protesting, no ban, no fear, refugees welcome here, we were really lucky, because in the middle of it, there came a New Orleans jazz band. And as we were chanting, the trumpet came and played a riff on top, and the sax played a thing, and the drummer. And pretty soon we're all going, no ban, refugees welcome here. Everybody's dancing and singing. The cops, the security guards are all dancing. We were there. We stood up because we knew it was right, that everybody needs to be respected in a certain dignity.
Yeah.
But we were doing it artfully. We were doing it as an expression of heart, and not against anybody. And I've just come back from, recently from doing these memorials for our beloved friend and colleague and teacher, Ram Dass. And the thing that was the most compelling about Ram Dass in his last years was how transparent he became to love. He just loved everything and everybody, and they would come in to his orbit and be illuminated by that love. I love you and you and you, and his guru, when he first wanted to come back from India, or was sent back from India by his guru, and he said, "I can't go back, I'm too uncooked, I'm too imperfect, I don't know enough, how can I teach?" And his guru got up from his seat and walked very slowly around Ram Dass, peering up and down from the top to the bottom, the side, the back, again, all over, and then sat back down and gazed at him with these beautiful eyes and said, "I see no imperfections." And this in India, it's called the glance of mercy. It's what Thomas Merton, the Christian mystic, described. It's on a historical marker in Louisville, Kentucky at 4th and Walnut. When you see the secret beauty of every single being and realize that that's who we are, that it's possible to live from love, even in difficulty. And then you say, as Katie said, bring it on. All right, these are hard times. This is what I've trained for. This is where I bring my love. This is what deepens your heart of compassion. If you want to learn compassion, turn toward the difficulty and bring yourself to it. And as the Dalai Lama says in the morning, may I be a bridge or a boat for those to cross the water. May I be medicine for the sick. May I be food for the hungry. May I be a resting place for the weary and a lamp in the darkness. As long as earth and sky and galaxies exist, this is my simple vow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I take heart in this, not because it's some beautiful Buddhist philosophical thing, but when things are difficult, that's my vow. I want to turn toward and learn the art of compassion for all of us. We're all in it together.
Yeah.
And this is that time. I think the corona is actually going to tell us, oh, I think we need comprehensive health care because no how many you are. You go to the same supermarket, and if somebody else is sick, and they don't have health care, it's your family now. It's part
Yeah.
of you.
We're interconnected.
We are in it together.
Yeah. It reminded me of something that Ram Dass said his teacher used to tell him. He says, always love everyone and tell the truth. And Ram Dass used to be, but the truth is I don't love people all the time. And I think we're all in a little bit of that process is we love people, we want to love people, and we do love people a lot of the time, and yet we get stuck. And what I hear you, Katie, saying is when you get stuck, look at your thoughts and stories around the experience. Go internally. Am I hearing you right? That's the stuck place for that love to flow.
Yeah, people, I can't blame people for what I'm experiencing.
Right.
And so, that's... Soren, we want to be good in the world.
Yeah.
But let's look at who we live with. Our children, our grandchildren, our spouses, our next door neighbor, the people that work for us, the people we work for, the man, woman on the street, Well, let's just say the people we live with. If there's a rub, we've got work to do. How can I love the world if I can't love the one I'm with?
Right.
And if I can love the one I'm with, that's self-love. Because the world, as I understand it to be, is here. It is here. And it's not here really. It is the illusion of past and future. And when I am out of touch with that, I can't be here now. And this past future thing is what it's like a gun where we pull the trigger and we don't know why we did it, and then we feel guilt. And so to question what I'm thinking and believing about you, that is the you as I believe you to be, that's not you.
Right.
So that is for me to take care of. And it's the same for like the coronavirus. It's the same. It's not an enemy. It's nothing to fear. It is something to I'm with Jack, little healthcare here.
Yeah. Well, one of the quotes I think I've always appreciated you said, it's not your job to love me, that's my job. That the love that we're seeking isn't expected from elsewhere. It has to come from, it's an internal process. And then that changes.
Yeah. And it's not personal. It's a state of mind. And that state of mind, we have terms for it like self-love, like service, like doing what we can. It's where we're at our best. That's the end of war. It's moving forward at all apparent costs. And this, I don't know, here it comes anyway. I was drinking water one day, and it went down what we call the wrong pipe.
Yeah.
And as it was going down, there was no war in me. It was mesmerizing. And this inquiring mind, it was like it went down and it went back up without war. And it was, I was allowed to experience myself as amphibious, like a fish. Wow. And it was again, I don't know if mesmerizing is the right term. I was fascinated, just like my hand's doing this right now. What is up with that? What will they think of I'll hide my hand. It's, what will they think? It means this, it means that. Who would I be without my story? Just natural, not at war with anyone or anything. And there's nothing wrong with war. That's what I call it, the push. The push, because when we're at war with anyone or anything, we feel that. And there's an attitude that goes with it. And that attitude and that emotional is it's like the temple bell that says, take a look or suffer.
Right.
Take a look or suffer. But I'm right. That I know mine, you feel it. I'm right. That means you're wrong. Simple assumption.
Right.
My life is your fault.
Right.
To look to oneself and this bringing up this coronavirus again, it's a push.
Right.
The push.
Right.
Not long ago, I was in a hospital and everything was shutting down. They didn't know why. They didn't know also how to stop it. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating. And inquiry allows us to love what is, as long as it is. And it really isn't, because the past, this imagined past and future that we believe, identifies us, that's ridiculous. But that is, that kind of fear will keep us from experiencing what could be the last moment of our life. And this really is the last moment of our life. This is it. This is it. This is it. I'll take it.
Right. Jack, do you want to jump in here and share a little bit about how you kind of see that natural expression of who we are?
Who we are, in essence, is loving awareness. We're not this body. We're definitely not all those fleeting thoughts or those changing emotions. We're consciousness itself that's created all this. And as you get quiet, if you let yourself pay attention, you can have the experiences of thoughts and feelings and so forth. But then there's this mysterious moment where you turn back your attention and realize, wait, someone or something is knowing all this. This is all passing like movies on a screen. And then you become quiet and you become the witness or the witnessing. You become the consciousness itself. And it brings an enormous freedom and an enormous love. There's some combination of both spaciousness or openness. And yet this presence brings a connectedness. And one of the things that was most moving in the memorials for Ram Dass, and they were special and filled with a lot of love, is that Krishna Das, this great kirtan singer who many of you know, told a story. He said, I met Ram Dass when I was 18 years old. And he'd just come back from India. He was wearing beads and white robe, and he was teaching, and he was tremendously charismatic and convincing about be here now, and you're not who you think you are. You're so much more, your vastness and so forth. And I followed him, and I went to India and met his guru. I practiced, and I looked at him with so much admiration. He said, and now I can say after 40 years that Ram Dass became the person we thought he was when we met him. It was so beautiful. It's all of us in some way. There's some part of us that knows our original dignity that is there in every being has an original dignity, a true nature, a secret beauty as a child and innocence. And it gets lost in our stories and our habits and so forth. But that's just our stories and our habit or our history. As Ram Dass said, I'm only Jewish on my parents' side, right? That's not really who. And instead, to take that story from Ram Dass and realize that we are the same, that in some way, for us too, it's possible to become who in our heart of hearts we actually know we are, who we were born to be. And I take heart from that practice of Gandhi, which I think we all could use, especially in these times, where he spent a day a week in silence. And he said, I need to listen to see what's the right way to respond to all of the conflict. And they would visit him and say, Gandhiji, there's 100,000 people on the street calling your name. There's 1 million people in Calcutta and they're fighting and many people are dying. You must come out. And he would say, I'm sorry, it's Thursday. This is my fight. And what I need to do and what you need to do is to let ourselves stop for a moment, not step out of the war, step out of the battle, as you were saying, Katie, stop the war with anything and just listen. Mm-hmm. And then, as one of our founding presidents said, one person with courage is a majority. Mm. That when you get quiet and you remember who you are and what really matters, there's a kind of freedom and courage that comes in it. Then you get up and your actions come not because you're going to do it in some egotistical way and save the world, but it's who you are. Mm-hmm. It's what you've learned. You become still, and then the right action, or the action that serves what you are, which is the world itself, you're not separate from it, comes from that. And people feel it. They know it. When you got quiet, and they're all upset, and you can gaze at them with such loving eyes and with a steady heart and say, and yes, now let's respond. So this is our invitation to become, who we can be, and as Ramdas did after those years, to become who we thought he was. we too get to do that.
Yeah. We just have a few more minutes. Katie, do you have any closing thoughts you want to leave us with about how you see these times and what you feel like the gifts and the lessons are that we're going through right now, and how we can kind of move forward? I know you don't like to talk about the past or the future too much.
Ask the question again.
We just have a few more minutes left, and I wondered if you had any closing thoughts on how you see us kind of navigating these times, and any words of any thoughts.
Yeah. Let's navigate these times sanely. Okay. Sanely is another word for, understanding, kindness, connection, right action, and right-mindedness only leaves right action. It's a fearless state of mind. And, I only know one way. I didn't have a teacher. It's inquiry. And my head was so crazy. It was so crazy that I just had to, work with one belief at a time. Just one if I can't love my mind, I can't love the world. If I don't love what I'm thinking and believing about you, I can't love you. I can't connect. I'm separate. I'm in opposition. Yeah. So inquiry is what I know. And I'd like to say this, Soren. There's not a human being in this world that is not doing the best that they can, and I love that we all are aware of that. Yeah. And some of us need a little work. And I end in that hallelujah.
And when you say the inquiry work, when you say that the inquiry saved, you didn't have a teacher, you only had your own mind. When you say the inquiry work, just to help people understand that the inquiry work is questioning your thoughts and feelings in relationship.
Identify what I'm thinking and believing about you that would cause me to be separate from you, to identify what I'm thinking and believing about you, to put that on paper. That way it's stable. It's my mind stopped where it can be managed. And then I read it like, there's something wrong with him. The first question, is it true? The second one, can I really know that it's true what I'm believing about him? There's something wrong with him. The third one is, get still, notice, Byron, Katie, how you react when you believe that thought. How do you react? What happens when you believe the thought? And then just to meditate in that. And then that last question, who or what are you without the thought? Who would you be without the thought in that same situation where you were believing it? And then turn it around. There's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with me. That's a long list. That keeps me present.
Yeah. Jack, any closing thoughts as we finish up this time?
Yes, first, of course, thank you and gratitude to you, Soren, to everyone there. I wish I were with you. I love you, Soren. I love Michelle. I love each one of you. Each one of you. I love you and you and you and you, you know. And this is really what we can do as human beings. I would like to invite you to close your eyes for a moment as you listen. And you know what Katie said, Suzuki Roshi put it in another terms. He said, you're perfect just as you are, and there's still room for improvement. But I want you to close your eyes and sense that as you sit here, you hear words, you feel the emotions that have been touched in this conversation, you sense your body seated here with its various body sensations and the thoughts that go by. And now begin to recognize that all this is appearing in awareness itself. That you're not the thoughts or the body or the sounds, that you are the loving awareness itself. You are the witnessing that receives all this. And let yourself become quiet. Loving awareness. I am loving awareness. The loving awareness that receives all of these. Rest in awareness itself. It's spacious and timeless, containing all things, at ease with it all. And from the place of who you really are, this loving witness of life, then let your heart respond. It knows exactly how to respond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Soren.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Michelle.
We look forward to you live and in person next year and appreciate you taking this time.
Yes, we
Thank you.
appreciate you
Thank
so much.
you.
Much love.
Blessings be.